Welcome to Audio Drama Interviews, the only show without a pithy tagline from Audio Drama Reviews. Then again, it doesn't need one. Hello and welcome to Audio Drama Interviews. Today with me, I have two people from VO Repertory Theater, and they are...
Hi, everybody. This is Tara Langella. I am one of the founders of VO Rep.
And hello, everyone. I'm Daniel Azarian, and I am the creative director for VO Rep.
So tell us how the company got started.
The company really got started because we wanted to really create something. My loves are voiceover and the theater. And we decided that we were going to take this idea from the theater and put that forward into an audio drama. So I guess it's kind of a combination of the theater, and what VO Rep likes to do is take that a step further and put more of like a cinematic spin on it for the listener. So that's how VO Rep started. And I got together with, of course, Daniel Azarian, who's our fabulous creative director. And yeah, it's just been wonderful. It's just been wonderful to be able to work with like a bunch of incredible creatives, and we get to collaborate on these phenomenal pieces.
I came on board as creative director basically to work with the vision of the piece and then work with the marketing and kind of how we are presented as a company to the public. So what type of pieces we're doing, the slant that we're using. As Tara said, we like to use what's called audio cinema. So we're really trying to create a throwback to the old radio play days when, the listener is really immersed in going to another world. So our productions are very sound effect and music heavy. We're really trying to create an audio experience for the listener.
And that's something we want to push even further. We really want to be able to, as far as going into the future, create more of that fully immersive kind of cinematic experience with audio drama.
Awesome. So just for a timeline frame of reference, I guess, when did this start? Did this start before pandemic, or did this start like after the pandemic or during it, I guess?
It started right at the pandemic because initially the Repertory company was looking at spaces in New York to kind of say, okay, let's do a combination of, as Dan was saying, let's take a radio show, like a radio play, and let's do this as sort of a live performance. And then the pandemic happened. I said, hey, you know what? Let's take VO Rep and just move all of that idea. And then that's sort of how the idea of the merging of this theater and the cinema happened. That's sort of what propelled us in this direction.
And it was kind of like a happy accident because, as Tara said, we were planning on having a space where actors would meet and we would workshop the productions. And we basically just took that model and transferred it to a Zoom call. So we work with a writer, we work with actors, and we actually do workshop the production. The writer comes in with an idea, or we give him an idea. He will write a couple of scenes. We read it through with the actors. We finesse it. We fine tune it. We give him notes. He comes back to us, and we basically develop it as if we were a theater company, but now we're doing it through Zoom.
Exactly. Same process.
Gotcha. Speaking of process, has it evolved between productions, that kind of thing?
Well, it definitely has. And I think Dan, who's our creative director, will work with the actors via Zoom. So that process is really, it's actually seamless. Michael, it's become a seamless process. We started, and right away out of the gate, it was just, okay, here we go. Like when we say there's really no difference between us, like kind of, sitting down and workshopping that script in person. As a matter of fact, there is, I always say that in theater, you have the luxury of time to develop a character. And we've sort of taken that into our productions here, where Dan will work with the company as the director, and the writer is there too. It's nice because sometimes we'll be like, all right, let's take this section here and let's do a little improv. Let's improv with this and let's see where we can go with this. And that is it truly is a collaborative process. But working through Zoom has been, knock on wood, it's been very easy. And it enables us to work with actors from all over, which is great. Like we just had an audition for our latest production for Justice, and it helps us to, we have one of our members is in Florida. We can work with members everywhere. You're in England, you want to, audition for something in VO Rep, come on in. So we have no limits that way. And that's really exciting.
Very nice. Let's see here. You mentioned before you want to do a combination of like theater and cinema, I guess. I guess this question maybe is for Daniel mostly, I guess, but you can chime in too, Lisa, or sorry, what name again? I forgot.
You can call me Lisa.
Okay, sorry.
I like that, Lisa.
You know what? But if I'm going to be called Lisa, I think I should change my voice or something. I'm like Lisa now. Hi, Michael. Hi, I'm Lisa.
Hi, Tara. I mean, sorry.
I like Lisa. She's fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So how do you go about writing a script that's both cinematic and stage play-y, I guess?
Well, that's really an interesting question because that actually comes up a lot. So our writer, Steve Wines, writes a lot about military technology and political articles, and he's a screenwriter. And a lot of times we have to finesse what he's writing because we have to remember that the audience cannot see anything. So we have to paint that picture with words and with sound effects. And I'm particularly careful of not painting with words too much because then it gets to be a little too, might I say, hokey or cheesy. We want to make sure that we're having just enough dialogue to describe what's going on and then have sound effects supplement that so that the viewer a listener is very clear as to what's going on. So our first production, like Wasp Women, for example, we could push it a little bit. So when the main character was turning into a wasp, we could have the victim that was watching this transformation go, "Oh my God, what's going on? You're breathing and wings are coming out of and an antenna, and oh my God, you're turning into a wasp." And it was very, very dramatic and funny because it was, had a comedic slant to it, so we could get away with it. But with a piece, let's say like Justice, for example, and a character is being sucked out of an airlock or is going into a room and seeing a character that doesn't see him, we have to tone back the dialogue a little bit so it's not too explanatory because we don't want to take the listener out of the story. And that was another thing we all discussed. We wanted to keep minimal narration, which a lot of audio dramas sometimes do. And that also goes into audiobook, which is a different genre altogether. So we don't want to have too much narration. We really want to try to have the characters speaking most of the dialogue to convey the story. And like I said, we just have to temper that fine line between making sure the audience understands what's going on via the dialogue, but not giving it too much dialogue so it pulls them out of the story. And then a sound effect hopefully can kind of kick in and communicate that idea.
So speaking of Wasp Women and sort of the horror B-movie tropes, were you always inclined to the horror genre, or are there plans for other things like in the future? What's their future for the production company kind of thing?
Dan and I in particular, we really do love the sci-fi horror genre. And we have, so far with our productions, done a few different genres, but definitely horror and sci-fi, I think, is where we shine. Don't you think, Dan?
Absolutely. We're also workshopping ourselves as a group. So initially, we were planning on doing all genres, and we started with Wasp Woman, but we're doing our fourth piece now. And all of them definitely have what you would call a sci-fi slant, an element of fantasy, an element of the unknown, something akin to maybe the Twilight Zone or maybe Black Mirror. So we found that as we're working, we really are drawn to the sci-fi / horror genre. So we want to start sticking with that for now and see where that takes us. And we also feel that's going to be more helpful for us to develop an audience if we kind of stick with one genre as opposed to doing a lot of different genres. So we did kind of change our focus as we develop pieces, and we kind of discovered, you know what, this is what we think we want to do.
What is your opinion on B-movie films? Are they there to basically poke fun of, or do they serve an artistic function, you think?
Oh, wow. What a great question, Michael. I love B movies. And B movies really are like the backbone of the Hollywood film industry for the reason that they existed. But, you look at somebody like Roger Corman, who I love Roger Corman. Obviously, we love Roger Corman. We did Wasp Woman was our premiere production, who has, 400 or something movies, and many of them are considered cult favorites. And he mentored some of our, top directors that are out there. So they definitely serve an artistic purpose. There also, and of course, there's the other end of the spectrum. And then you look at some of the things of, like you look at Ed Wood, right? But there's something to be said for having the freedom to be able to, we don't have any constraints, and B movies didn't have any constraints, right? They were always kind of going out there and taking risks. And even an Ed Wood who was like, you know what, I am so passionate about what I do. I mean, you have this individual who was so passionate about creating that it didn't matter as long as he was creating, right? So I think the answer sort of lies in between those areas. They definitely serve an artistic purpose to be able to Especially, I think Roger Corman is the best example of that because he sort of developed that kind of guerrilla filmmaking technique. He did that. So the answer would be yes. I believe
Exactly,
absolutely.
yeah.
And Dan, our director, I mean, I'd love to hear Dan's opinion on this as well. I think I know what it's going to be.
Well, absolutely. I think it's creative. Absolutely. And if it's not creative, we're making it creative. But no, I do think it's creative. And I also think what's wonderful about B movies, especially B movies that are older, like from the 50s or 60s, is when you see a B movie now that was made a while ago, it really does serve as, I think, a social commentary. Because when you see the social mores of a society in an archived or in an older format, it's so much more obvious what that more is as opposed to when it is currently. So if you see a B movie and let's say there's a commercial for cigarettes and you see, how they're promoting, oh, these cigarettes are healthy and fun and everyone should be taking them. And, at the time you probably didn't see anything wrong with that. But when you look back on it, you could see the advertising machinations in place. So I think it's really interesting to take a movie like Wasp Women and, that was basically about a woman, being scared about aging and wanting to be beautiful forever and the lengths she would go to do that. And you find in 2020, that's still prevalent. So we actually took that retro script and just updated it and included references to Botox and, references to social media influencers. But the drive to want to be beautiful at any cost still remains. And when you see it positioned in a quote unquote 1950s drama, I think it just makes it much more obvious and much more of a social commentary.
Is there anything you'd like to mention before we sign off?
Oh, well, absolutely. Justice is playing right now. So if everybody wants to come take a listen, you can find us at www.vorep.net. And you can see our newly filmed documentary, which is a behind the scenes. It will give everybody an idea of how we work, the things that we talked about, Michael, about working via Zoom, how we create things, really kind of goes into that. So I would definitely have everybody come and take a listen. It'll have all the links to where you can find Wasp Women and Justice and Bait. And Dan, I don't know if you want to add anything about what we're going to be working on next.
Sure. We have our next audio drama is going to be called Dearest, which is based on an existing short story that our writer is adapting. It's a supernatural story. And then down the pike, we have a remake of Alfred Hitchcock's Lifeboat with a little bit of a twist, which we're really excited. That will be original as well. And that will have a sci-fi bent as well. So we're excited about that. And Michael, we just want to, we're really thankful to have audio drama reviews because Tara and I and our company, we love audio drama and we really do see it coming back and getting stronger. So we really just think it's really important to have resources available that really promote it and let people know that it exists. And hey, why don't you check this out? It's a genre that, I think a lot of people are going to enjoy.
Well, thank you for that. And with that, I will bid you all adieu and see you next time, whenever that may be, for another episode of Audio Drama News and Interviews.